Welcome to Cause and Career, Shaping New Mindsets for an Evolving Workforce, a limited conversation series with Active Minds in the Hartford. The Hartford is a leader in property and casualty insurance, employee benefits, and mutual funds. With a shared focus on prevention and action, the Hartford and Active Minds are partnering to provide mental health support to young adults and mobilize the next generation of mental health advocates. Today we'll have Brandon Bonds, an Active Mind speaker, who will be discussing imposter syndrome within young professionals entering the workplace. But before we jump into the conversation, I'd love to introduce Brandon. Brandon is the LSA Mental Health and Wellbeing Project lead at the University of Michigan, where he spearheads strategic and systematic public mental health initiatives. Additionally, Brandon is a professional mental health public speaker with the Active Mind Speakers Bureau, with experience in global public health, multicultural well-being, and organizational change. Brandon applies a multidisciplinary approach to his work. As a former advisory council member for Active Minds and MTV Entertainment, Brandon contributed to the creation of Ask, Acknowledge Support, Keep in Touch, a national digital youth mental health peer support campaign held as the new Stop, Drop, and Roll of peer support. He also advocated for federal peer support policies through Mental Health America's inaugural Youth Policy Accelerator and is currently co-developing the infrastructure for the Packard Health Black Men's Mental Health Ambassador Program. Beyond his direct mental health and well-being work, Brandon is a fellow in the Results Organizing and Advocacy Fellowship, which focuses on addressing poverty and hunger through grassroots advocacy. He also serves as a mayoral appointee human rights commissioner for the city of Ann Arbor, where he champions equity and civil rights. Brandon has been truly a heavyweight in maneuvering in this space of mental health, and we're so excited to have him. So today we're going to talk a little bit about imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is a psychological condition that is characterized by persistent doubt concerning one's ability or accomplishments, accompanied by the fear of being exposed as a fraud despite evidence of ongoing success. Author and speaker Claire Josa has categorized imposter syndromes into the 4 Ps: people pleasing, perfectionism, paralysis, and procrastination. Many young adults have noted experiencing some of these aspects of imposter syndrome when starting their career. We'll focus our conversations on young adults and strengthening their mental health in the workplace. Brandon, so glad to have you.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
So, Brandon, how would you describe imposter syndrome, and how do you see it impacting youth in the workplace and their mental health?
Yeah, so overall, I think I would be in similar alignment with Claire's definition as well too. Some things that I would add to that definition to make it a bit more robust is thinking about some of the potential underlying like contributing factors that may contribute to imposter syndrome. So one of the biggest things I think that contributes to imposter syndrome is just historical aspects of trauma that come up for people in the first place, of thinking about if they have a history of feeling degraded or anything of that nature as well too, that kind of already puts their confidence at a lower mark than someone else that doesn't have that experience. I would also say having an experience with a series of failures and not being able to have the tools or strategies in place to effectively process that as well too. And then I would also say that it can at times become or come from an intense desire to be seen as the person that that person wants to be, but again they don't have the strategies or tools to be that elevated version of themselves as well. So I would add those as some additional key pieces to the definition that you told us about as well too. And I think when it comes to specifically how this looks in the workplace for youth and young adults, it can look like a lot of different things overall. So, one that comes to mind is just waiting for permission to make advancements, to speak up, to um, just find ways to really bring their own insights into these spaces. So a lot of times people may be waiting for decisions to be made for them as opposed to taking some of that initiative for themselves. And when we think about having to wait for things to continuously happen for us, that can lead to a loss of like sense of agency as well as hope at times, and then also thinking about increased anxiety because now you're just in limbo with all these things just waiting and decisions to be made for you. I would also say that it can lead to, at times, inauthentic behaviors as well too, or just masking in general, which can also lead to a sense of isolation. And then one of the last things that comes to mind when it comes to imposter syndrome, and one of the contributing factors to it, is that there can be some hyper responsiveness to characteristics of a competitive environment or something of that nature. And that can lead to negative self talk and negative narrative generation for not only that individual, but for other people as well, too. And yeah, I would say I have some firsthand experience with that. Was not a fan, highly don't recommend. But I also want to kind of use this time to like, I don't know, make some hot takes. Like if people are listening and watching, like
Yeah.
let's get into it. So one hot take that I have is that when it comes to imposter syndrome, yes, we have to recognize that there are environmental factors, systemic, social factors that contribute to that. And we also have to recognize that part of it can be self-sustaining and self-producing as well too. So essentially what I mean by that is that at times there may be people that create these false or inaccurate narratives about other people trying to like compete with them, one up them,
Mhm.
but in reality it's like we're really not
You're
thinking
just
about
doing
you.
it
Like
correct.
I'm just trying to figure out what I'm doing for dinner tonight. But when we have those thoughts and narratives kind of again like they are trying to take over, they're trying to do these things, and they're getting praised for all of this stuff. At times it can lead to a lack of confidence and just other things of that nature as well too. But at the reality or at the core of that, the person really just wants to have an sense of confidence. They want to be seen, they want to have like I guess like a sense of like they're longing to be the person that they want to be, but they aren't that person just yet. And I think at times that can fill them with like a sense of false competition or intense competition. So I think that's also something that we have to be intentional and reflective about for ourselves too, is just that again, sometimes we create these competitions and degrade ourselves when it's really just us not having the tools or resources to process that effectively, as well too. So I think those are some of the things that I would definitely highlight in conversations or definitions around imposter syndrome.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. And I appreciate your hot take.
I,
Because it really is twofold where it's happening by environments where you may not necessarily be in that place to where you are in a of authority to where you do have that autonomy to make decisions or waiting for permission. That's so great. One of my former supervisors was like, "Stop!" When I was a young professional, he was like, "Stop waiting for permission.
yeah,
Sometimes you do just have to do things and ask for forgiveness if you mess up." So that's really great. Um, and then also something else you said about the false competition, right? Of trying to be somewhere. For me, what I have seen is young folks in that transition, you have been in college, you have been in school, and you've been working to get to these places. And so now, once you're in the place and you're here, you're still trying to grind, right? Like you're still trying to prove yourself because you still feel like you're going somewhere, although you have arrived in this moment. But you're looking at other folks, and that's so true.
yeah,
Um, that false competition. Thank you for sharing that. So
yeah.
you mentioned this just a little bit. So tell us, you can you share a little bit about your personal experience with imposter syndrome and how you navigated through it?
Yes, definitely. So I would say that fortunately I've been able to find ways to navigate through it, but I would say that a lot of my experience with imposter syndrome came from a lot of my younger years. I mean, I'm not that old anyway, but like high school age and everything. So it stemmed from some unfortunate encounters I had with people. So being told and having a sense of or feeling inadequate in certain scenarios, or being told that I should aim lower in my life, or that I'm just not enough, whether that's you're not black enough, you don't weigh enough, or you weigh too little, or you're not masculine enough, or whatever else. So all those things constantly being told to me, kind of internalizing as well too, of just never being enough in those situations. So for me, with the four P's of um, imposter syndrome, the two that I usually kind of went to for my own coping mechanisms were people pleasing and perfectionism. So for me, high school was one of the peak times for that, but also my catalyst moment or change catalyst moment for making sure that that's not going to be the trajectory that I continue on down the line. So in high school, those last 2 years, I took L after L after L. It was so, so bad and embarrassing and everything. So, yeah, all these different positions that I worked years for to get the most community service hours, to be in top leadership in student council, to, I don't know, excel in music and everything. Every position I applied for, lost every single one of them back to back to back. So for me, I felt that it was just like a huge shock to my system because I already had grown up with the notion and kind of story of you have to work twice as hard as a black man or black individual to make it half as far in the world. So that was kind of something I was already working with, and then just trying to make sure that I guess like engaging in people pleasing and perfectionism, because one, that could be my life one day. That is a safety opportunity for me, but also recognizing that I want to be seen in the best light so that people know that I'm ready for these positions and all of that. So for me to do that, engage in that consistently for years, just to lose everything I worked for, yeah, it hurt a lot. And when I was looking for different answers for like, why is this? This is not how it's supposed to be. This is not what I was told. I still remember talking to someone that made one of those decisions as well too. And the response I got is just, yeah, sometimes things just don't work out. And that's it. That's it. That's all you got for me. Like no feedback, no like, oh, we made a mistake or anything of that
Right.
nature. It was just like things just happen. Like, okay, yeah. So I just have to live with that. And for me, I think with that moment, I was thinking about it from the standpoint of like, yes, sometimes things just happen, but they happen because people make decisions for those things to happen. And I wanted to make sure that I no longer subjected myself to, again, waiting for other people's decisions or placing my value based off of their thoughts of and interpretations of me. I wanted to find a way to set my own satisfaction benchmarking. So I did that through quite a few things. One is just education. If you know anything about me, I'm always learning something. I'm always in a random class or getting another degree or something of that nature. So when I started looking into specifically social justice and equity education, that is definitely the root of my approach to things, how I view different things as well too. And then when it comes to imposter syndrome, I started to see and recognize through our histories and justice movements that people like me are not supposed to feel comfortable in spaces because they were never intentionally made for me. They were not designed for me, or and sometimes, many times, to be honest, there are intentional efforts to ensure that that place is never going to be a place for someone like me as well too. So, and being able to understand that and recognize that, it kind of took some of the burden off of me. Like, yes, I still have some growth that I need to do, but I also have to recognize that I'm not the sole reason that I don't feel comfortable in certain spaces as well. It's intentionally made for that. So if anything, they just did a really effective job at it, and I just have to find a way to focus on my area of control overall too. I'd also say that I did a lot of work on trying to focus on reframing and redefining my own sense of satisfaction and ways to also kind of delineate and identify ways that I can separate ideas that are often kind of mushed together overall. So when we're thinking about like people pleasing, I want it to go from getting validation and support from other people to focusing more so on just like how can I be my own source of validation where I just need to check in with myself, and if I feel like I'm going on the right track, then that's enough for me. I don't need to hear everybody's opinions and thoughts and do all of that to validate that I'm doing the best that I can in this moment and can in the future as well too. So I think those are some of the biggest pieces for me, but also thinking about having the opportunity to just explore like both the world and career fields and through people's stories as well too. So I know not everyone has the capability to physically travel to places, but through conversations you have with people, through books, through history, accurate history, you can find
Oh,
ways to, I told you, hot takes.
hot take. I was gonna say that's another. We need to put something that's like hot take.
But through all of those different pieces, I got to see so much more of like what life can be and how I can experience life as well too. So when I started to see that I'm just a very small dot in this overall world, like there's no way I can know everything. So as opposed to seeing it as I'm not enough, I'm deficient in this, I changed my mindset to think about it from the standpoint of I have limited knowledge and I'm going to continue to expand my knowledge by doing this exploration. I think also being able to demystify like these high positions of, I don't know, people in positions of power and all of that, demystifying that was really, really helpful for me because as I started to rise up through different organizations or rankings or whatever else, honestly, I just saw that a lot of people are mad mediocre. Like, in just all honesty,
Hot
like,
take.
yes, hot take again. But the thing is, and not to say that mediocre is bad or negative or anything, but the thing that I started to see and also admire about people in some of these roles is that they just continue to show up and they continue to try. Like, they didn't have to be super educated, have all these accolades and all of this stuff, but they just showed up and tried. So if they can do that, then I felt like I could do it for myself too. And then the last thing I'll say on this is that one quote that has helped guide me as well too, and I try to focus on and remember that everyone is a lesson and that it's a quote by Catherine Aird that if you can't be a good example, then you'll just have to be a horrible warning. So, in all the decisions that I've made, I tried my best to choose the route that will lead me to being that good example as often as possible. Yes, I still make mistakes and don't always choose that. Sometimes, you choose violence and wake up with that. But yeah, for the most part, choosing to be that good example is the thing that has kind of helped me feel like I'm making my own space. No one can compete with me because I'm just in my own sphere to that certain degree. And not again, not being arrogant or anything, but it's just this is my own little world and I'm interacting with other people's little worlds as well too.
Absolutely. I don't think that's arrogance. I think that's like confidence and knowing who you are. Brandon, you said so many great things in that. One of the things that I love the most is I won't say that the people are mediocre. Maybe they are, but what it sounds like is you humanize them. And I
Yeah.
think that's really helpful for a lot of people is to like stop thinking of folks just like, oh, because you're in this position or you have this title, that it creates a false sense of self or a false sense of who that other person is, because a lot of times that can be barriers into us wanting to perform, or again, as we talked about with people pleasing, but we'll go back there in a second. One of the things that I've heard you say, and it's really going against some of the things and how it shows up for other people, is you have allowed like imposter syndrome and ambition like run concurrently.
Yeah.
You don't let one or the other stop you. And
Mhm.
one of the things that it can be is paralysis or what I'd just like to say freeze, although it goes against the P. I'll use freeze, right? It'll let people be in a place of freeze. How have you continued to pursue, right? Like how you continue to keep moving, also while protecting your mental health as well.
Yeah. So for me, I think that I try my best and I encourage people to look into the why of why they feel certain things. So when you are feeling imposter syndrome, what are those moments? What is making that so prominent in their life at that moment? For me, I started to realize that whenever I felt that, it was because I was either envious of someone and something that they had, or I wanted to feel more confidence in something as well too. So once I started to recognize that like those are the actual issues, it's not this person, it's not this thing or whatever else. I started to find strategies of like, well, how can I build my confidence? How can I get the things that I'm seem to be associating value to as well. So that was something that was really helpful and impactful for me. And I think one of the biggest things that I tried my best to do is that whenever I saw someone or something that I wanted or didn't feel, I guess, like adequate enough for it, if I knew that or assumed that someone had that, as opposed to just cutting them off and just saying like, well, they have this and that and all these other pieces. I did something that I think is a lot harder for people to do. And I just asked them, like, how did you get here? What did you
Oh,
do? And how does this contribute to the person that you want to be in the future as well, too? And I think through doing that, a lot of times people gave me really great answers. They talked about how like they really don't feel as confident in themselves either. So I think that kind of just gave a sense of clarity for myself. But again, I think just being able to not cut myself off or believe that I know the absolute truth just based off the limited knowledge I have. Because even if they have all these other things, I don't know their whole story, their whole life. Yes, they may be great at work or in school, but maybe financial stability is a challenge. Maybe they don't have the social connections that help them flourish or things of that nature as well too. So I think by having that humility and being willing to ask those questions, express some of that vulnerability within myself to see what resonates and what are the strategies that they've used and how can I potentially either use that and tailor it to my own journey, things that make sense for me to move forward. That was something that I found to be really helpful, and in doing that, it also has helped me build stronger relationships with those people that I would have seen as like competition or opposition with. But now we have closer relationships. We can exchange additional information and can continue to have mutual growth between each other. So that's been one of my ways of, I guess, like balancing both of those, of just seeing that what's at the root of my imposter syndrome is honestly just a lot of indicators of the things that I value, the things that I want to pursue. Again, I just didn't or don't have the strategies in that moment to achieve that. But that's when you start to look out, outsource, and get that information and get that support and community to get you to that place that you know that you can be.
I love that using that as like your field to go forward, and having community. That's fantastic. So, something that you have spoken quite a bit about already is people pleasing. And so, for some people, I think that people pleasing show up in everyday life for them without knowing that they're actually people pleasing, like some of those tendencies. So, can you tell us a little bit about, like, from your perspective, what does people pleasing look like in the workplace?
Yes. Let's see. So I feel like it. There's so many things that it can look like, and I feel like it overlaps with quite a bit of the other, I guess, like dimensions of people pleasing as well too. So some of the things that come to mind is one, just telling people things that they want to hear as opposed to the things that they need to hear. So I've been in quite a few like meetings or projects, whether I was a student, volunteer work, or whatever else, where we would have conversations, we would toss ideas out, and as opposed to saying the not all ideas need to be pursued, people instead were just like, "Oh yeah, that's a great idea." It's like, it's not. It's not in this moment, at least. So that would often lead to, uh, in certain cases, following that idea that probably wasn't going to be the most effective in that moment, and that had a wide range of results. Usually, additional confusion, poor outcomes results, frustration, a sense of it's like inner conflict as well, going against your beliefs and values as well too. And I think specifically within my line of work, since it is more so human centered and human service related, when I think about it from even just like an ethical standpoint, if I know that this isn't going to yield the best results for people that I'm providing services for, then that's me being negligent in my own job, and people can be harmed from that as well too. So
Mhm.
it sometimes can have larger implications than we may anticipate. So I think that's one way that it can show up, and again, some of the impacts that can come from that. One thing that I unfortunately had the experience with is trying to dim my light to match someone else as well too. Um, so I think with that, feelings of resentment, annoyance, lack of trust, and at times just like diminished motivation as well could come up from that as well. Because when you, at least in my situation, coming from again being told that not enough, being told that I need to aim lower, and finally building up my confidence to feel that like I can take on this opportunity and maximize it, just to kind of get additional like tension or sometimes hate, snarky comments, and all of that, to kind of bring me back down to match where they're at in that moment. That just doesn't sit right with me. And I think that's something that a lot of other people can likely resonate with as well too. And I'd also say that it can show up in terms of thinking about just power imbalances and accountability as well too. So again, when we're thinking about um, people pleasing and how that doesn't really facilitate opportunities for accountability, it doesn't foster creativity, and again, having that agency involved as well too, it's going to be diminished. And once that becomes a habit and is continually being like recycled and all of that, it just kind of contributes to the larger culture of imposter syndrome, of I guess more dramatic power imbalances and things of that nature as well too. But there's quite a bit that I think can be done around that area. So hopefully there will be a lot more opportunities to prevent that from coming up again. Yeah, there's just a lot that goes into it.
Absolutely. I love everything that you shared. Um, One of the things that it made me think about is sometimes people forget that no is a sentence
Yeah.
because sometimes I have seen it from my perspective too, where folks will continue to say yes
Yeah.
and just want to say yes because they want to take on all the opportunities without understanding that there's a limit within themselves.
Mhm.
Or because of that power dynamic of maybe I can't say no to my supervisor. Like, what does that look like? What is that punishment? So I love that. I feel like that's fit tightly within that power dynamic.
Yeah.
Within that same lane, what are some of the ways that people can begin to work away, like towards limiting those people pleasing tendencies?
Yeah, I would say that there's probably quite a bit that can take place. So, one thing that comes to mind is that it can be helpful to kind of set your own boundaries or needs. So, one thing that I will talk about in particular is for myself that I have these 5 personal questions or like guiding questions that I develop for myself to make sure that I'm on track and living into my values and all of those pieces. So the first question is going along the lines of with this action, belief, or interaction, what is the story that I want to tell? So for that, I think it's really important to think about whatever I'm doing, what is it that I'm actually trying to say with this action, with whatever I'm doing or moving forward with? The second question is related to tell this story, who are the people that I need or want to be prominent characters, and who are the people that need to be written out or just seen in the blooper reels. So it's important that this is not only just my story, but it has so many other people that are going to be involved with it, and I can still have some type of agency or influence as to how prominent of a role I will allow them to have in my story, in my journey as well too. So there's going to be certain cases where if you're working with someone or on a class project and it's not going well, sometimes keep it strictly business. This is exactly what needs to be said. Outside of that, we're done. You've been demoted. And my overall life trajectory and everything. Like again, you're not tossed away, but you can't take up as much space as you've had because you're not contributing to my growth. Me you're not making an environment where I can be my best self so that I can show up more for other people, provide more for other people as well too. But then there's going to be people that they do that and they are your hugest supporters and you can support them back as well too. So they need to be promoted. They need to take up more space in your life, in your thought process as well. The third question is surrounding what harmful and helpful flashbacks will I need to embrace? So, again, we have to think about who we were coming into who we are today. And I think there are certain pieces that have been helpful, there's certain pieces that have been harmful. And whether we consciously or unconsciously know it, they still influence how we think, how we move forward, and other aspects of that too. So, I always want to make sure that I'm not just thinking that this is new, this is just here in this moment, but what else have I experienced that's contributing to how I'm interpreting the current or present day? The fourth question is who do I need to be and what do I need to do to experience and tell this story? So this is more so of the action step areas of what exactly is it that needs to take place? Who do I need to talk to? What do I need to learn? What do I need to stop doing as well? All those different pieces to make sure that I'm moving forward in a way that's going to allow me to tell that story that I want to tell. And then the last one is more so future thinking of would I be proud to continue tell would I be proud to continue to tell this story in 5 years and why? So I think a lot of times we are present focused of I need to do this in this moment, I want to look special or whatever else, but down the line is that really something that I want to say that I valued? Do I really want to say that I did this thing that caused someone harm just for my um, more immediate gratification? Do I want to say that I took a chance, made mistakes, and found ways to learn through them quickly and process them? And that has led to other opportunities. So, those are some of the things that, at least for myself, it really helps me um, navigate that people pleasing aspect because, again, those questions they require me to be honest. They require me to be reflective as well. And they are based in my values, my desires, as opposed to the influences of other people as well. And don't get me wrong, those are still important in thinking about collectivist cultures and practices. And I think we can evolve to having a both and situation where both of those things can be true, where our individual needs and desires are necessary and it's good to have those be prominent features of our life and we can still have the I guess most effective or growth promoting pieces of that collectivist aspect too.
That's perfect. I love that you have those questions, and I feel like you can use that in life too. So, like, this sounds like both like life, but also this can translate when you're in work and like, what am I really signing myself up to do?
Yeah.
I love that so much. So, I want to move on to another topic, which you've talked a lot about, which is perfectionism. So tell me a little bit about how does perfectionism show up, and how does these ideas impact young professionals' overall well-being?
Yes. So some of the things that are immediately coming to mind is that when it comes to perfectionism, I think we can see aspects of overcompensating for skills, abilities, or whatever else, because we don't want to be seen as having gaps or whatever else. So sometimes that, again, doesn't lead to the best results because we will either say that we can do something and do it well, when in actuality we need support. We need people that can fill in the gaps that we may not have the experience with. I think it can also be and result in being very hypercritical of ourselves and of others as well too, of here are my standards, you're not able to meet it, or here are their standards and I'm not able to meet it as well too. So that can often cause, again, like a lack of self-esteem or a decline in self-esteem and confidence as well too. Sometimes it can be just also like inauthentic behaviors, and that can lead to social disconnection as well too, because again, I still have yet to meet someone that I would deem to be perfect, by any set of standards as well too. So when that is kind of the lens that we are viewing people through, or that we view ourselves through, it just creates unrealistic expectations and behaviors and attitudes that people, again, no one is perfect, so it's really hard to resonate with someone that believes that they are, um, as well too. So that can also, again, lead to some isolation of like, I don't know what you got going on, but this just isn't going to work or vibe with me. So that can be something that comes up as well too. And I also think that when it comes to perfectionism, that it can lead to a more limited scope of perspective and also motivation for growth, because for me, some of the biggest things that have influenced my life and trajectory have been mistakes that I've made, have been things that I've explored, things that I didn't have a plan for. All of those pieces, have helped me grow. But if I just stuck to, this is what it means to be perfect, this is the only way to achieve that, I'm missing so many other opportunities, so many potential connections or different ways that of understanding how life can be experienced and lived as well too. So I think those are some of the ways that young adults or just people in general that have perfectionist tendencies, some of the things that they may be experiencing as well too. And in terms of how to improve those aspects, I think exposure therapy as much as possible. So make it a habit to expose, yourself or myself to minor mistakes. So again, it doesn't have to be something that is wildly extravagant. It can just be like, when you're cooking, what happens if you leave out a certain ingredient or a certain seasoning or something? Like, it's still going to be edible. It may not be up to your standards or like what you wanted or had a taste for, but at the end of the day, nothing's burning down or no catastrophes are happening. So I think being able to do things of that nature are like, leave a dish, like dirty dish, in the sink or something like that. I definitely am not promoting being, like
Unclean.
uncleanly and all of that. But again, you're a human being. You have other responsibilities, other things that you have to do, other things that take priority. So leaving like, I don't know, one spoon, one dish in the sink, again, that shouldn't hopefully have a very dramatic impact on, someone's life as well too. So I think being able to practice and making a habit of just showing that mistakes happen and life goes on can be really helpful. And I think also, again, as I was mentioning before, being
Hold
able
on,
to,
before you keep going, I just want to say those people who bake, they are screaming right now because one wrong measurement when baking, you got a whole different experience. But I think that's good for learning lessons.
yeah, I mean,
Continue.
hey, as long as you're not selling that or like bringing it to the function or whatever, that's fine. But yeah, I mean, it can be good if you are going somewhere, if it is like for a bigger purpose, put some more effort into it. Don't intentionally leave that
But for
ingredient.
everyday life,
Yeah,
every
yeah.
day, you can change it up. Just giving you a hard time.
Like if it's like a quick little 30-minute, you don't have all the ingredients, just experiment with some stuff, see what works. But yeah, but yeah, I think it also is really helpful to think about just the reflective practice that can come from this as well too. So being able to define clearly and also envision what does perfect actually look like, what does it mean, what does it feel like, as well too. I think that's something that we have to continue to kind of like break down, because oftentimes there's an underlying factor of what that means. So sometimes people will say that I want to have this type of relationship or this type of family or this type of house or whatever else. And it's good to strive for those things. And the underlying thing for that could be maybe you want strong and consistent relationships. Maybe you want stability and security or those other aspects as well too. So I think being able to again define that, envision it, can be really helpful. Asking other people what does perfect mean and look like to them as well too can also be helpful, because it shows you that there are so many different definitions of what that can mean and look like. So how does that work when your perfect is very different than this person's perfect? Like there's going to be conflict that comes up with that, as well too. So how do you navigate that as well? And then I think, at least from my perspective, perfectionism is very based in, I feel like a lot of times it can be based in like the present moment as well too. So again, when I talked about how it can lead to limited scope and lack of motivation for growth, it's important that we recognize that as human beings, we evolve, we grow, our society changes and evolves with us too. So how does our vision and our definition of perfect, how does that evolve with time and with uncertainties that we again just don't know about as well too? So I think being able to really question ourselves, explore those different things, practice those aspects of mistakes or non-perfection, I think those can be things that really help us move forward, through perfectionism.
Well, perfect. Thank you so much, Brandon, for sharing your wisdom with us today. This has been great. I appreciate the hot takes, but you have shared a lot of gems with people to be able to work through imposter syndrome and improve it for the next generation of folks. Thank you so much for being with us today.